Hello, hello. Welcome to With Wisdom, embodying energy and embracing seasons. And we are really lucky today because we've got a fabulous guest interview for you. Gaby, how are you? Are you well?
I'm very, very fine. I'm excited and nervous and happy and joyful and grateful.
Lovely. And the sun's shining is beaming on your face, which is kind of picking up all of those lively energy feelings and sensations. You've got the lovely sun coming in on your face. It's gorgeous. And we're welcoming Roel Crabbé, who is a shamanic teacher. Maybe you can share. Is that your right title, Roel? Am I giving you the right name?
Yeah, I think shamanic teacher will do it. I've been teaching shamanism for 25 years. So this is what I do in the world. And of course, this also ties into healing on a broader scale and
Mm.
spirituality, working with the soul, working with nature, working with the heart. That's what I do.
Oh, my body immediately responded to those that sen working with the nature, with the heart, with the body. Thank you so much. And so we're really excited to have you here. And Gaby, I wonder whether you would like to share just a little bit about how, because you brought Raw to our attention on the podcast. So how do you know each other, you two?
Well, so first, again, thank you very much, Ruth, for being here with us. And as I was saying offline, bringing Rule and also Mimi that we have had in February is my way of opening my box of treasures to the world because and they are both of the big teachers I have in the moment. I have many, many teachers, and life is quite generous with me with teachings. And I think that Gabriela for 10 years before would have never known to be like learning or going through a shamanic path because it's a part of myself that I try to hide or not to have in my awareness as a chemical engineer and rational being. And since I embark in my journey of undoing all of my building blocks 6 or 10 years ago, I I had a big crisis 4 years ago, and that was quite of unsettling for me. After I finished my somatic coaching training and divorce, and I thought, okay, now I'm coming into the world like a coach, and now I'm not an engineer anymore, and going in this world where I had the beauty of a headache for 9 months. And through these 9 months, many of the connections I have with the unseen world were bubbling and appearing, and I could not deny them anymore, even if I was scared of it because of the reference I had or the link I made with all these things with the mental illness with from my mom. And in that scenario, I started to come into contact with such things. I did a healing, ancestral healing with a healing wheel. And a friend of mine sent me a training from Rule. He offers from time to time free workshops or healing sessions or healing ceremonies. And I came across to one of that. And then I started to do a self-paced training of the shamanic training. And I was able to go to Wien, to Austria, and meet Rule in person. That was a beautiful thing. And it was in a moment where my son was diagnosed with a rare disease. And as I think I shared not directly with you, Rule, but in your webpage, it has allowed me to go through this process feeling quite supported with the whole universe with me. I mean, I'm connected. So it's all about connection. And what I like from your teachings and your being in the world, I felt very welcome by you with your energy. It's not only words, it's what you embodied. And because I think you are someone that has welcomed all your not I don't know all, but many of your shadows also. So you are comfortable with all of your humanity, and it made me feel that I could be comfortable with my own humanity. So it's not that such of a boo-boo world. It's a world that you bring all what is available to us. This connection with the natural world, with the with what has created us and remind us to be a better humans here. So that's why I wanted to bring together bring Roel today, and yeah, so welcome, Roel, and thank you so much. And that was only to acknowledge and honor you, and hope that someone also finds their way through your teachings or any of these teachings, if this serves to anything, because we are in times that we are in very much of need to remember all this connection. So I don't know if you want to say something before I go to the first question, Roel, and share a little bit about
Tell us a bit more. I think I'd like to know which bit of Austria you are living in. You know, just kind of hearing that little nugget that Gabriella threw in there.
Yeah, I think what of course, I feel moved by what you share. It's beautiful. So I'm Roel. I live in Belgium. And I think probably in the same way that you have experienced, Gabriella, my path started through pain. And, many people that go on a deep spiritual journey, generally they start because something is not working. They're longing for something, they're suffering. The short summary of my introduction to the spiritual world was, when I was born, my father or my parents divorced when I was 6 months. My father struggled deeply. I came to live with my mom, and I heard from others that we were best friends, but she passed when I was 4. And so my father wasn't around, so I was raised by my grandparents. And from that early age, I just felt really, I don't know if a 4-year-old can overcome that, right? So I just felt this enormous pain, and I would cry myself to sleep. I remember rocking my body and singing. Actually, I sang myself to sleep, and I've done that until I was 12, and then I went to sleep with friends, and or a camp with the scouting or whatever, and I stopped doing that. But so from a very early age, I was interested in the unseen realm because I was looking for my mom. I remember as a child, I wanted to find her in my dreams. So I always had that link. And then I was raised by my grandparents, and my grandmother was the mother of my mother, and she was completely awesome, an enormous, beautiful being who, of course, had to overcome her own grief of her daughter passing at an early age. But she took me in her house and into her heart. And over the years, she actually became my first spiritual teacher. She gave me a lot of books on African cultures, Aboriginal cultures. And I was so intrigued by their art, spirals, concentric circles, all these lines. It was as if it spoke to me in a way that I didn't understand, but it intrigued me. And so as the years went on, I got into drugs when I was probably 13, 14, got a lot into trouble in school. I started rebelling a lot because I felt deeply lost. I think that's the word. I just felt lost. I felt my own pain, which I was trying to avoid by using drugs. And then I saw the pain of the world. And that was too much. Like I just saw all the images on the news and it just broke my heart. I've always been very sensitive. I still am. And so that became my journey. And by the age of 16, I found my first teachers. They were teaching a core shamanic approach, of course, with some Celtic influence because I live in Belgium. And through meeting them, I just found something that made sense to me. I remember one of those pivotal points in my life was standing in a circle. My grandmother actually joined me. So we were about 200 people, I think, maybe 150, a big, big group. And we were doing a summer solstice ceremony. And I remember standing there, and there was someone in the center of the circle just giving gratitude to Mother Earth. And the only thing that happened is I cried. And I found something that made sense. Like, why wouldn't I express my gratitude for the food that I receive? And so, exploring many spiritual paths, since my heart always called me back to a very direct experience of spirituality. And for me, that happened through shamanism. I never trained in other traditions. Of course, I met shamans from other traditions, but I always came back to the practices that were my own. Singing, listening, listening more, learning how to journey in the soul. And step by step, as I started walking that path, my teacher just, keep calling me back. Like, hey, you're here. You're here. This is Mother Earth. And I started healing, and I started to let go of the addiction issues. And this has been 31 years now. And what I like about what you just shared, Gaby, is that, it's the human journey. I don't know any answers for anyone else. I know that the answer for me is to listen, and to listen to life, to my heart, to my dreams, to others, to the earth. And from there, when we do so, something happens. People just open, and the soul starts to work. And that has been my work for the past 25 years, is to create circles, create trainings where people make that journey within, and they find the guidance within, they find empowerment within, they find healing within. I cannot offer that to them. It's already within each one of us. Once we start to connect again to nature, once we start to connect to our hearts, just magic happens. And so what I liked about your sharing is that it is about connection. That's the key. The key to me is connection. And it is as simple as that. And once we find how we can connect, it's endless. It goes deeper, deeper, deeper. In my own spiritual journey, I think I'm probably getting ready for kindergarten. It's fast, it's endless. There's no end to it. And it always becomes more about true presence, kindness, compassion, finding a way to, mend the pieces of your soul that got scattered, which of course is a lifelong journey, as it is for me. And I have the great privilege of just meeting people like you and all these people in my circles that are just people that are ready to listen to the heart and to trust that something will step forward once we surrender into it. So that's a bit what I wanted to share.
I love the kindergarten stepping into that you're now at, because there's this whole notion about, being grown up at certain ages, and you hit these, I would say, randomly picked numbers, 18, 21, 16, that suddenly you're supposed to be an adult and know yourself, but actually the knowing self goes on all the way. I'm fully, kind of with you on that, all the way to death. And even in your moments of death, there's going to be a new aspect of self that I'm sure will come to us. Obviously, I haven't been able to speak to people post-death, but I have that real feeling that actually in the moment of death, you get to know something else about yourself and have another part that will be shared. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Wow, thank you. Yeah. And for me, what has been quite transforming is also giving up the idea that I need to figure out something and learning to listen. And also learning to allow all what is wanting to come to me, so the love and the healing and the support to come. No, so it's quite a great shift. And from what you share, one can see, that already there's a big source of wisdom through the practice, to nature, through also relationships and your grandmother. But is there any other source of wisdom that is nourishing you at this point in time in your life, in your work, that you would like to share?
Yeah, I always surround myself with people that can bring a certain clear transmission. And I've always done that. I always had many teachers. I still do. I'm very eager as a person. I love exploring. I love learning about life, about how this beingness works, on how we can grow as people. And so I have some personal guides in my life. I consult with them often. They help me to dismantle blind spots, areas that just need more polishing, or where I want to go to polish more, to learn more, to understand more. And I think especially if someone has been hardwired through trauma, that's really beneficial. Like one of the things that, as you mentioned, I often do free sessions online, because why wouldn't I, right? This is a good way of allowing or supporting people. And I generally advise people that if they're truly struggling, to seek out a therapist or a counselor or someone that they resonate with and feel safe with, because that's what I've always done. Not per se, in the beginning, it was from a place of pain. But after the year, or during the years, it became out of interests. Like I just want to go deeper. If for example, you meet this top athlete, they don't see a coach every month. They see that coach every day. This is what I've always felt. I want to learn. I want to understand what I understand. But there's so much possible. And one of the things that I do is I have my own spiritual practices, which are all based on listening. So it is pretty meditative, but coming from a place of connection. So within my spiritual practices, I will connect to source, or however you want to call that, the great mystery, recognizing that throughout everyone and everything in nature, there is an intelligence that flows through us, that wants to heal our body, that wants to heal our mind, that wants to heal our heart. And it's always here. And we can communicate with that intelligence. We can open our being for that intelligence just by inquiry, by opening. And over the years, I just found that listening, that deep listening, that spiritual listening, combined with good questions, creates a powerful path, of a powerful way of living. And for me, for example, the question that I very often share when I'm teaching is, what is it that wants to grow within me or within my life? And I actually ask that question daily. And this can be like, maybe in the morning, I feel nervous about something, or, this is going on. Oh, today it's peace. Today it's trust. But what we then can practice becomes our reality. If I can be that version of myself that trusts more deeply, especially since I've been hardwired at an early age for fear and loss. So I spent my whole life living in fear. That's how I spent my life, even not conscious that I was in fear. But I was always watching out because something bad was going to happen. This was what my body, my mind, my heart was remembering from an early age. Super understandable, but that's not a way to live. And so I had to go through my journey to meet those parts of myself that were just terrified, and to bring them home, and to give them a place within the vast landscape of who I am. Because I can be that fearful part, but I can also be a wise part. I can be gazillion parts. And so I think that's has become my main source, is listening. And I perceive this listening practice as something that is ongoing in every moment. So I can listen in this conversation. I can listen to what my neighbor is telling me, because I believe that I'm part of a magnificent reality that is beneficial and that wants to guide me to become a more loving version of myself. So I just try to listen to everything. I'm not saying that I'm super conscious all the time, because I'm not, but I practice. That's my path. And it's path of deep surrender, because in the end, if I don't have the need to control everything, it means that I'm in a deeper trust. And this is something that I'm still learning, still practicing. I'll probably practice it the rest of my life. But I believe it creates a deep connection to life. So those are probably the sources that currently are very deeply within my life. And of course, I practice shamanic journeying often, and I have a lot of very vivid dreams. So I get a lot of visitations from, the consciousness that supports me in my journey. And I just feel that I have been given a very blessed life. And I had and still have just the most beautiful teachers that cross my path. They're all people of the heart and of simplicity and of kindness. And so that's the path for me.
So may I ask a little question?
Sorry?
Can I ask a question? Are you
Yeah,
okay?
for sure.
I like, the piece around the teachers. I'm when I'm receiving your words, I'm kind of thinking, I feel that they are real people. Are some of your teachers people like your mum or your father, even though you may not have had a relationship with them? Are they part of your teaching group or not?
So all my ancestors have passed. So I don't have any living ancestors anymore. So in that sense, no, because they're not alive. So on the human plane, not. But through, the imprints that I have received, I still learn probably, I wouldn't say daily, but very, very often from insights that I receive from my ancestors. For example, my grandfather who raised me, he was a very closed man. He didn't speak, literally. Generally, he didn't speak. When he was upset, he did. So that created an interesting dynamic, especially since I then got involved in drugs and, all these issues.
You probably spoke a lot then.
But I was teaching 2 years ago in a circle of a 2-year program that I teach. And during that circle, I had a memory so at one point when, you know, I had all these issues, it was advised that they would put me in a home. And my grandmother later told me that my grandfather said to that person, "Over my dead body." And I had that memory during that meeting. And I saw, although my grandfather, he passed 30 years ago, I had always perceived him as a closed man. And in that moment, I just saw how much he had always loved me and he had protected me. And just seeing that opened my eyes to other memories of beautiful moments together that before that I just didn't see anymore, because I was just looking through this paradigm. This is how he was, but he was much more than what I saw. And this is how that's this intelligence, right? I truly believe, you know, if I cut my finger, within a millisecond, the intelligence of my body will start to go at work and heal that. But the same happens in our soul and in our mind. And of course, we might need help. We might need tools. We might need, you know, oh, this didn't work, let's try that. That's life. But I believe that this intelligence wants me to shine, wants you to shine, wants everyone to shine. Because if I look at a flower, what's the purpose of the flower? It's to be the flower, you know, to shine its beauty and to be as it is. And the same for us. And there's an intelligence to that. And since I'm very intrigued by the shamanic path, I would say, yeah, the ancestors still guide me on a daily basis. And some might perceive that as through memories, and other ones might perceive that as a sort of direct transmission from another realm. Doesn't matter to me. I don't care how people perceive things. I care if things work. You know, do they help me to be a better person? If so, let's keep doing that. And so it's a very alive universe. And I think that's what I feel when you ask me that question. On the personal flesh and blood level, they're no longer here, but they're part of the landscape of who I am. And that will never change. And I continue to learn from them, from my own experience, from my own heart, and from life.
And you were with them for a very, very long time, because you were in your mother, who was in her mother's womb. So there's a kind of connection there. You know, you were with your grandmother. A tiny bit of you was there. So being received back and having a different relationship as a young boy, it kind of it's like a natural thing, because, you know, you were there for many, many, many years before, which I think is quite mind-blowing when you think about that. It's amazing.
Yeah, very true.
May I comment something that it's in my experience how so as rule, my ancestors, at least my mother, my father, and my grandparents are not alive anymore. And through this change of perspective, I think one powerful thing that what I have been learning, I have been already 3 years learning from you, Roel. It was the realization, if my mind could make so much fear stories up, no? So I mean, to try, of course, to protect me and all this stuff. And I thought, well, what if I pay attention to the beautiful stories, no, to the empowering stories, no? And I started to live in this world, or paying more attention into this feeling and sense that through the ancestral healing came alive, that my ancestor, my mom, my dad, everybody is here with me, is in myself, is in my experiences with them. And since then, they are with me every day. I had also a similar experience with my grandfather. He was very close man, and I always had the narrative that he was the bad guy of my little story of my life. And it was quite beautiful because now in my heart, I think he has forgiven me for many sins. Yeah, thought he was bad and was close to his love. And now I can see how much he loved me and protect me all of my life. He took us, my brother and myself and my mom, into his home. He protected us so for many years. And I have the strength of my grandfather in myself. And through the shamanic work and also in Qigong each time or internal martial arts that we practice, at the end of the practice, we honor our circle, we honor our teachers, and at the end, we honor our ancestors. And that also changed the narrative of the not only the trauma or the difficulties, it's just to see how much beauty is in my ancestral line, no? So in my gift, and then they start talking to you. Last year, I came across a book in a children's bookstore named after my mom, Lydia. And I was so amused to have the book. And then when I opened it, because I didn't know Lydia was actually an Estonian name, I discovered this lady was a poet like me. And then I discovered she's blood related to me, because I asked my uncle. So you see, it's a word that comes alive because you change the whole perspective or the whole narrative and story around me. At least it's my way of being now in the world, thanks to teachings like rules. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most profound insights that we can have as a human being, is that our perception is our reality, period. The way that I perceive is how I will experience it. And I'm not saying that to diminish any suffering in the world or that horrible things don't happen in the world. Of course, very clearly they do. But for myself, spending most of my life being in fear, if you're in fear, you perceive everything differently. And so things become threatening very quickly. And now I create a story about that. But it's all based on the filter through which I am perceiving. And the beauty of a deeper spiritual path is that it is a pattern interrupt. It will break the pattern, even if it's for a millisecond, and it will allow you to see like, oh, this is actually how I am perceiving this and how I am making an interpretation. Is the interpretation correct? It could be that the answer is yes. It could be, very often in my case, 99 point something %. It's generally like, no, my perception is actually colored. The story that I'm telling about this person, this event, this, whatever, is colored by a fear, by a concern, by a narrative that I created. And that's the beauty. It's essentially, it's a path of freedom. Freedom to experience life in a deeper level that is more, grounded in presence and in true experiences of what we feel and how we can relate when we have less of that filter through which we perceive. And that's how lives can literally, I see it all the time in my work, life change in 1 second. Sometimes they change, of course they keep changing, but generally it's people see something differently and they're like, whoa. And now they can relate to that circumstance in a very different way. And as they relate, they will see different, they will speak different, they will act different, and then they have a different outcome. And so that's the beauty of the path. And in my approach, it's all coming back to the heart again and again. What is my true dream? What is it that wants to grow? For me, I want to experience joy. I want to experience openness. And so this is my path. And so I have seen myself change over the years, becoming more grounded, becoming gentler, becoming kinder, becoming more open. And I dedicate myself to keep continuing that, because that's the version of myself that I want to grow into, not because I'm not good enough right now, because that's just my potential. That's who I truly am. That is who I am. If I let go of all these protective mechanisms and fears, I can be open, I can be kind, I can be present, I can try to understand. And that's, I think, the beauty of this spiritual dance, is that it helps us to see more clearly. And when we do that, it will lead to more compassion, because once we start to see, like sometimes people, when they start doing shadow work, they say like, oh, I have this misinterpretation and I catch them every few days. And after a while, if you're doing this, you will catch it hundreds of times a day. How you're just shifting the story, generally to a negative storyline. And once you really see that, you start to have true compassion for other beings, because they're in the same game as well. They are suffering from it, as do you. And it just creates that deeper compassion and that openness. Like you start to see how much your mind automatically programmed just shifts narratives. And that's what I find to be so beautiful in this path. Is some people call it shadow work. I don't know what's the exact name for it, but once you start to see this old programming, and you start to understand that this is a way of self-preservation, and you can give those parts of you love, kindness, things start to heal on a deeper level. And I think one of the frustrations that many people have on the spiritual path is that they at one point start to see that these patterns play such a deep role, but they want to get out of it, preferably yesterday. And that creates a lot of friction. I think one of the deepest teachings that I received was one day my teacher told me that if you have a glass of water and you drop one drop of ink into it, it will just become one with the water, and you won't see it visibly anymore, but it is in every drop. And I understand, let's say for me personally, bring it back to me, I have experienced a lot of fear, loss, grief, loneliness. It could be that I encounter parts of that the rest of my life, and I'm totally okay with that. I used to not be. I was like, oh, this should be healed. It's one of the topics of my life. And how beautiful is it that I now get to teach about connection, whilst having lived a life of feeling utterly lonely, abandoned, not good enough. So sometimes life maybe just guides us like, hey, this is your life's experience. What is it bringing you? What is it teaching you? And for me, it's like, I want to inspire connection. I want to inspire love within myself and within others. That's what I think is meaningful. That's where my heart guides me. And then you see all these beautiful changes happening in the way that you just described. And I probably assume everyone in the world has experienced to some degree that life just guides us. If we allow ourselves to see it, it just amplifies. That's what I've learned.
I love everything that you're saying, Roel. And there's two things that just come in that sort of I pick up. So I shared this with Gaby earlier. Gravity holds galaxies together, and stories bind us together. And it's something around acknowledging our story, and that's what I'm hearing from you, acknowledging the stories that we tell ourselves, because those stories can then lead into these repeating patterns. But out from that, another teacher, leader that I connected with shared ACT with me. So it's about the acknowledge. And then the C is write your next chapter. This is where we are in control of taking elements. There will always be some pain. There will be pain. That's never going to go away. Like you say, with the water, ink in the water, the fear will always be there. But then there's an opportunity for us to write another chapter. And then the T is take the first step. And having people buy with us. And I say Gaby is one of, my kind of, I feel like we do things like this together. We acknowledge, we write the next chapter, and we take a step. And it's having people, whether they're living or dead, because I would say that my parents and my sibling who's passed are there in my life immediately. I didn't know any of my grandparents moving from Sri Lanka to England in the late 50s. There wasn't ever an opportunity for us to return to Sri Lanka to see our grandparents. So they were just names, and they were, actually, and never even kind of, I think maybe had a telephone conversation with my father's mother. Very brief, because I was very small. That whole, they're there though. They're still behind me, and they're still there supporting me. But there's also the people that are right now here supporting me as I write the next chapter. But I think that acknowledgement, and I hear a huge amount of compassion for self when you've been talking, without a berating or like you said, why am I not healed? Just acknowledging this is where I am now. Where do I want to go to next?
Yeah, I fully agree. And what I've seen in my own journey in healing, at one point I was doing this shamanic journey, it's a practice developed by Michael Harner. It bases itself on different shamanic practices, but basically the idea is that through music we can go into an altered state where we are more open, more dreamlike, and then we can explore the dimensions of the soul. We can connect deeper to nature, etc. I was doing this journey years ago, and in the journey I met the 4-year-old Roel who lost his mom, and he was crying and he felt really lost. And I had been on a healing path for probably 20 plus years, and all of a sudden I saw that whenever I encountered that deep sadness, my approach to healing would be to basically try to get rid of that sadness as quickly as possible. And so in that journey, I looked at him and I took him in my arms and I told him, you can cry throughout eternity and I will hold you. That's love. And for me, that really created a shift, and it started to guide me and my consciousness and my awareness to the realization that healing is a path of integration.
Yeah.
It's integrating. It's coming to terms with, not in a victim-like sense, like, oh, things were hard and they will ever be hard. No, just understanding that 4-year-old experienced tremendous pain, and it's part of my landscape. And I try, in my work, I try to share that we are vast beings. I have that 4-year-old that is crying, and I have a wise part, and I have a gazillion memories, and I have my family there and my friends. It's all within me. It's within my consciousness. And so it's very big. And that means that we can give things a place where we can nurture it. We can give it kindness. We can give it love. And especially for someone who has experienced deep intensity, like for me, I was diagnosed with complex PTSD, and my nervous system was always very intense. And so every experience was very intense, which of course is a brilliant teacher, but it's also challenging. And just learning that I am as vast as this tremendous landscape gave me the opportunity to not feel overwhelmed, because that was always a pattern for me, feeling overwhelmed because of the intensity, because I didn't learn how to, expand this container to hold it all. And that's the beauty once we can start to, and for me, the shamanic practice helps, once I can start to connect to nature. Well, nature is pretty vast. And you have that feeling when you're in a forest, you feel the surroundings, it's not just you with your thoughts. It's like, no, I'm part of this. This is my home. These are my friends. And that changes everything. And once people get that and they tap into such a practice, which can be very simple, like going in your garden or for a walk, you can literally start to change how you're wired and how you experience, how you feel, and just become more grounded and start to realize that I am part of this. I'm part of this beautiful nature. This tree, I'm connected to it. This river, I'm connected to it. I belong to the land. I'm part of it. And that is something that so many people, especially in the West, they crave for. And, when you share that, that's how I perceive healing currently, as a journey of integrating, giving things its rightful place, but also dedicating yourself to bring loving kindness to those parts of you that might feel angry or lost or whatever. And things over time, they just soften and soften and soften. And then we don't have to go into that paradigm where we are always judging and we're basically never enough, which is a paradigm that many people suffer from. And I can relate to deeply from my journey.
I think you've answered partly my next question, which is, how does the way you're living now align with your desired legacy for the future? I think you kind of touched on this already, but is there anything more that you'd like to share with us? We all talked about loving kindness.
Yeah.
Moving, pushing the constraints that we have around us out, so we are ready to accept more of ourselves and into that circle.
Yeah, for me, my life has been intertwined with death. And so death is my teacher. Gabriela is in one of my trainings now, a 1-year journey. And I literally, before I started it, I asked myself, what if this is the final training? What if it's done after this one? I'll just, life will be done. I ask those questions often because it helps me to get to the point. What do I truly want to give? And currently where I'm at is to inspire love. I really don't care what is the medium. What I'm currently focusing on in my life is to be more clear in my decisions, realizing that, I only have time. That's the only thing I truly have. I have some time before it's my time to go. And so creativity is a big one. That's a sculpture I made, and that's a painting I made. And I haven't been dedicating a lot of time to art. So that's something that I want to share. But all is immersed in this fascination that we are part of, is something alive and magnificent. And for me, a very important word is compassion. to understand that we sometimes don't understand, and that tremendous pain can be caused by that. And one of the things that also moves me is really showing up for people, you know, doing the events, but also the free gatherings, recording things, putting them on YouTube or Spotify or whatever, just to share. I often sing in my meditations, and people are touched by that. So it's like, let's do more of that and just give it to the world, so that you know, there are these moments of stillness, or, you know, letting go of some tears, or, you know, giving people some more breathing space to walk the path that they're walking.
Lovely.
Is there anything you want to add, Sam, before we wrap it up? So thank you so much for your time, your sharing, Roel. I want to once again say thank you from my heart for all the teachings I received from you, your generosity. I would add to all of the things you said, you are an embodiment of humility. Which I appreciate. I remember when I met you in person, it was quite, for me, no, I have been seeing you in online, I'm on my screen for several months, and then I saw you in this room where we had the ceremony the night before the weekend. And it was like this no teacher over there, and we have the mind, or at least in the world I come from now, engineering and PhD is quite vertical. And you were so approachable and there and loving. It was yeah, for me a big shift and beautiful. So I appreciate the humility and the humanness you give to the world. So thank you very much. And that's all from me. Sam, you are now
that in Austria, because I said you met in Austria. And
because
then Roel, you say you live in Belgium. Oh, my
yeah, but
internet
he
is unstable.
did a special training in Austria. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
I didn't manage to go. I mean, I might mention, or if you want to mention some of the things you do, but
yes.
At that time there was the possibility to do a weekend in Austria, and it was possible for me, and it was like everything flow, and it was a gift to me. It was this year. So Diego, my son, was diagnosed in July. I went to London in August to meet you, Sam, and then in October came this opportunity. It was quite I think my narrative, or the story I tell to myself nowadays, is that you become the teachings or the struggles or the challenging situations, but on the same time you also have life start to give you tools and people to go through them. And what I appreciate, or I'm thankful nowadays, is that I'm more and more capable to see it. In the past, as I was so caught up with my as Roel, with fear or anger or many things that I had in my heart, in my body, I was not able to see this. Not that life is handling me on the same time, it's giving the training possibility, or I don't know how to call it, but also the tools or the medium. And this trip and this Austrian teaching, which you haven't done for a while, no, I think that was the last one.
Yeah, I think it's 3 years now. I used to teach yearly in Austria, but it's been 3 years. There were some projects here in the center, a renovation, so life got busy. But I'm pretty sure I'll return at some date.
And I hope you come to Germany someday. I mean, last year I wrote to you in one of our trainings, I come to Germany, but then I never dared to drop the email to say, let's organize something. So.
Well, now it's out there.
Now it's there. Yeah.
You
Who
should
knows?
probably drop the email then.
Yes, we should. She just shared it.
So, do you want to share something? Because there are several things coming up besides our 1 year circle and the ceremonies and.
Yeah, there's always many things. So people can reach me at roelcrabbé.com. I also have a Dutch-speaking website, which is called anamkara.be. But so on roelcrabbé.com, you can find all the events. My current focus is really on the Shamanic Training Circle, which is an in-depth training where you go deep into a core shamanic approach to healing. That's the thing that, when I asked myself the question, what if I only have 1 year left? That's the thing that came out of it, because it's what I've learned and I want to pass on to others. And I refined them in the past 30 years. So that's where my main focus is. And I have a beautiful retreat, which is called the Healing Field. So those are things people can explore. And you can always reach out on Instagram or Facebook and send me a message if someone has a question. I also have a beautiful training on the light body. I find that very beneficial, and we offer that for free on the website. People can just do the training. That's our way to support more. So there's many things, but generally it's roelcrabbé.com, or reach out on Instagram. If you want a free training, just send me a message and I'll send it through.
Thank you so much.
That's all from me. Also, thank you so much, Roel, for being here. Thank you, Sam, also for creating this space and allowing me to invite some of my.
I think we've gone past that now. We are co-creating this space together. Yeah. There's no allowing. It's just happening.
Yeah, and thank you so much for everyone listening until this point in the episode. And we invite you to just share, comment, like, subscribe, and anything, and reach out also. Yeah. So this was With Wisdom, Embodying Energy, Embracing Season.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.